Some commentators claim that Common Purpose now has representation in virtually every major town and city in Britain, with alumni helping newer recruits rise through institutions including local government, policing, academia, banking, education and, of course, the civil service. At face value, Common Purpose says it simply wants to develop future leaders. The real question, critics argue, is what kind of leaders it seeks to create. Where we are all scratching our heads and rubbing our eyes and going, I can't believe I'm seeing this, I can't believe I'm hearing this. How have we possibly got to this point in society? Hello, it's Paul Cox here, and today I want to talk to you about Common Purpose. No, not the generic term. Yes, the organisation which seeks to train the future leaders of this country. And they seem to have an extremely well-connected network of people that are either in our main organisations leading this country or the government itself leading this country. Very interesting indeed, and some would say very much linked to the Fabian Society. Anyway, let's get on with it. So, what is Common Purpose and what is it all about? Where better than to start than right at the beginning? In July of 1988, Common Purpose founder Julia Middleton was working at the Industrial Society. Whilst there, she came across details of an American community leadership program which took a different approach to leadership development. Rather than focusing on management within teams, the US program brought together leaders from different sectors and backgrounds so that they would learn about their city and work better together. Determined to take this idea and develop it for the UK, Julia resigned the very next day and set about raising the initial funding for what became Common Purpose. From the outset, she was insistent on maintaining Common Purpose as independent and non-aligned to any one funding organisation. And this determination dedicated approaches to a wide range of potential funders right across the public and private sectors. The following is taken from the Common Purpose website. What we believe, the vision. We believe in a world where good leadership can make a positive impact on society, where there is more potential for equity and inclusion, where people can navigate and challenge what can divide us at work and in society, where the power of diversity and difference unlocks new thinking on common problems, where people are having the real purpose-driven conversations, the types of conversations we need to be having to bring about real change. Some of this stuff, by the way, sounds incredibly similar to some sort of Labour or Green Party mission statement. The purpose is igniting unexpected connections to spark leadership that makes a difference. The mission is we are on a mission to develop people who can cross cultural, institutional and societal boundaries at work and in wider society. This stuff is making me feel quite unwell. We work passionately with people to help push the boundaries of what is possible with good leadership. Good God. Well, before I get stuck into that load of horseshit, let's get into the detail of what this is all about. The facts, the figures, the people, the organisations, and where and when it's happening. This network is far more extensive than most people realise. It is reportedly operated for decades, running selective leadership programmes before placing its graduates into influential positions throughout public institutions, where critics claim they help spread increasingly radical progressive ideology. While organisations such as the Fabian Society have long carried an air of intellectual intrigue, complete with their old wolf in sheep's clothing symbolism, Common Purpose initially appears much less dramatic. A typical public sector training initiative filled with fashionable corporate language and diversity jargon. That impression, however, may be misleading. On the surface, the organisation presents itself as harmless, yet accounts from former insiders and critics suggest something potentially more concerning beneath the polished branding. Its website is packed with vague management phrases about empowerment, leadership and collaboration, promoting international development programs designed to shape future leaders. Businesses and public institutions often spend large sums sending employees on these courses, which outwardly resemble networking events wrapped in modern ideological language. Who could object to encouraging future managers to think creatively and act responsibly? And yet questions have persisted for years, including enough concern to prompt media attention from organisations such as the BBC back in 2009. Clearly, some observers believe Common Purpose is more than simply a charitable leadership body. Increasingly, I can understand why they think so. The organisation was founded in 1989 by Julia Middleton, an LSE graduate. Of course, LSE being founded by the Fabians, who went on to establish a global network now claiming well over 100,000 alumni worldwide. Participants are trained under Chatham House Rules, meaning discussions remain confidential and members are encouraged to maintain long-term ties with fellow graduates, creating a powerful, interconnected network across sectors and countries. Critics argue this network advances a broadly globalist and heavily left-leaning world view. Although courses can technically be applied for publicly, it has often been suggested that many candidates are informally selected through recommendations from existing members already embedded in influential roles. Graduates can continue through additional programs, collecting common purpose credits as they progress deeper into the organisation's ecosystem. Applicants are reportedly vetted before acceptance, reinforcing the impression of a curated and exclusive network. Some commentators claim that Common Purpose now has representation in virtually every major town and city in Britain, with alumni helping newer recruits rise through institutions including local government, policing, academia, banking, education and, of course, the civil service. Whether or not every claim is accurate, membership certainly appears advantageous for career progression in some sectors. In certain public institutions, it's even been alleged that listing common purpose training on a CV carries considerable weight during promotion processes. For years, I believe senior executives adopted progressive ideology largely because conformity to DEI culture became necessary for advancement. Increasingly, it seems possible that common purpose may have played a significant role in shaping that culture. The organisation itself openly states that people from thousands of organisations have taken part in its programmes, including employees connected to major corporations, universities, public bodies and media organisations. Courses have reportedly involved government departments, broadcasters, banks, lobbying groups and European institutions. There have also been long-standing allegations of overlap between common purpose networks and influential political circles, including links, formal or informal, to Labour-aligned thinkers, and Fabian-style gradualism and policy groups connected to both New Labour and later technocratic government models. Perhaps none of this proves anything sinister, but if the organisation is entirely benign, critics ask why so much of its activity takes place behind closed doors under confidentiality rules. Questions over influence intensified during the Leveson inquiry, where figures connected to Common Purpose and related media reform organisations were accused of conflicts of interest surrounding proposals for tighter press regulation. The controversy led some observers to compare the organisation to an ideological version of the Freemasons, less secretive in ritual perhaps, but similarly influential through elite networking. Even some terminology surrounding the organisation has fuelled suspicion. Early leadership training reportedly used the title "The Matrix" as a phrase that later resurfaced elsewhere among politically connected legal and institutional circles. At face value, Common Purpose says it simply wants to develop future leaders. The real question, critics argue, is what kind of leaders it seeks to create. The organisation encourages participants to operate beyond authority, meaning across professional and institutional boundaries. Supporters describe this as collaborative leadership. Opponents see it as politicisation of a traditionally neutral public bodies. A major concern remains the secrecy surrounding the courses themselves. Common Purpose argues confidentiality encourages honest discussion, but critics counter that any programme funded with public money should be open to scrutiny. There have been accusations strongly denied that critics and FOI requesters have been informally monitored or marginalised through internal networks. If graduates are genuinely united by common purpose, then is it reasonable to ask what that shaped purpose actually is? The organisation's outlook certainly appears internationalist and broadly progressive, raising wider questions about how much influence such networks exert over modern political institutional culture. Some critics believe organisations like Common Purpose are helping to create a post-democratic managerial class, unelected technocrats exercising influence through bureaucracy rather than direct public accountability. Common Purpose also acknowledges using behavioural and leadership development techniques, while some detractors alleged the use of methods such as neuro-linguistic programming, though supporters argue these are standard coaching practices rather than anything sinister. Researchers and campaigners who have investigated the organisation for years and warned about trends that now feel increasingly familiar, dissent framed as extremism, expanding institutional control, growing surveillance culture, and closer coordination between public authorities and ideological networks. What is undeniable is that Common Purpose has built an enormous professional network spanning many sectors of society. Its alumni occupy influential positions across public life, and its training programs are conducted with a level of confidentiality that naturally invites suspicion. At minimum, it seems clear that modern progressive managerial culture has benefited from highly organised institutional networking in ways that its political opponents have struggled to match. Critics also point to cronyism concerns, arguing that tightly connected leadership circles inevitably help one another secure contracts, promotions, and influence, often funded by taxpayers. Given that some of these programs reportedly cost thousands of pounds per participant and are frequently paid for using public funds, many believe the training material itself should be fully transparent. After decades spent resisting over-collectivism ideology, it is understandable that some people now worry that similar ideas are quietly re-emerging through managerial institutions and elite networks rather than through traditional party politics alone. Common Purpose has worked with a very broad range of organisations over the years, particularly across the public sector, universities, healthcare, charities and major corporations. The organisation itself says its mission is to work across business, government, education and wider civil society, essentially creating leadership networks that cut across traditional institutional boundaries. Now, when we look at the public sector specifically, participants in common purpose programs have historically come from local councils, civil service departments, police services, NHS trusts, and various public agencies. And it's precisely this visibility inside public institutions that helped fuel many of the conspiracy theories surrounding the organisation. In healthcare, for example, individuals connected to NHS organisations have taken part in leadership programmes over the years. That includes people from NHS trusts, integrated care systems, healthcare partnerships, and academic health science networks. Some of the major NHS-linked collaborative organisations often mentioned its connections with these networks, including King's Health Partners, UCL Partners, and the Shelford Group. Now, it's important to be clear here. These organisations are not owned or controlled by Common Purpose. The connection is usually much simpler than that. It generally means that individual staff members, executives, or leaders attend one of the leadership programs. The same pattern appears in higher education. Common Purpose has worked extensively with universities and students through leadership and employability schemes. Institutions associated with these programs over the years have included King's College London, the University of Oxford, the University of Sheffield, and Saïd Business School. The corporate world is no different. Participants and partners have reportedly come from banking, consulting, technology, media, and multinational business sectors. Historically, organisations such as the BBC, BT Group, HSBC, and KPMG have had staff involved in common purpose leadership programs, according to various reports and alumni references. The organisation has also worked with youth groups, charities, social enterprises, and community leadership organisations. But this is where the important distinction needs to be made. There's a major difference between an organisation formally partnering with Common Purpose and individual employees simply attending a leadership course. A lot of conspiracy narratives blur those two things together. In reality, involvement often just means employees attended training, managers participated in network programs, or organisations sponsored leadership development placements. Something that's actually common across executive education and leadership networks generally. And that brings us to Transport for London, my old employer. Do TfL use Common Purpose? Well, yes, there is evidence that people connected to TfL have participated in common purpose programs over the years. That evidence comes from me. I participated in a common purpose future leadership program at TfL, and I can tell you right now it is quite clandestine. We were not allowed to take away the materials used for training on the day. And we were encouraged to keep secrets and also encouraged to work closely with the alumni that had previously been on the courses. Make of that what you will. But there is no evidence that TfL is somehow run by Common Purpose, infiltrated by it, or formally controlled by it. The relationship appears broadly similar to what we see across many large British organisations. Wow. What is it that I really think? I've outlined there facts, figures, organisations, research that I have undertaken. Some of it my experience, some of it taken from previous alumni. And now I'm going to tell you what I think. As I alluded to, I have done a common purpose leadership course. I was identified in TfL in about 2017 as someone who could be a leader of the future and was put on a succession of common purpose leadership training courses. And it's true. It's true it's clandestine. It's clear that Chatham House rules apply. We were told not to talk to our colleagues about it. We were told not to share the course information. We were told, however, to talk to previous alumni. Very clandestine, you would say. I certainly thought so at the time. I didn't go any further than maybe 2 or 3 courses, and I think I know why. Because throughout, being completely unaware that this was a common purpose course and not knowing how well it was connected as a networking system, I questioned everything. As you can imagine, I was quite the contrarian. I said things like, this feels awfully manipulative, and why is it one doctrine? Why are we following some progressive narrative? This seems too contemporary. This seems too of now. How would this apply in the past? How will this apply in the future when things change? And I think those type of questions meant that I was earmarked as someone who probably wouldn't be a leader of the future, particularly in that organisation, and how true that was. Because from that point on, I went from someone who was a future leader to someone who was pretty much going to stay exactly where he was and maintain a low leadership level position. Didn't have an issue with that. I was paid handsomely for what I did. The civil service is a walk in the park, though some of it is very tricky and we are dealing with real people. This is why I always found it incredibly important to be true to me. This is why I always questioned and continue to question why we all need to be clones of a particular type of ideology. And make no mistake, the civil service, government departments, much like the Department for Transport or TfL, are clones of one another. I know this because people very close to me who work in organisations, very similar government departments, completely unaware at the time, I discovered were doing things exactly the same. So an edict would come out from the leadership down to the people like myself, and it would say exactly the same thing to us in TfL as it would say, for instance, in somewhere like the Royal Navy. Incredibly the same. And you've seen this perpetuated in mainstream media. Do you remember during COVID or BLM when they all parroted the same messages throughout? Well, that is happening in our institutions as well. And that's because of things like the Fabian Society and Common Purpose. Make no mistake, that is not a conspiracy. I have seen it with these very eyes. Now, I might need these, but they can see well enough. Thank you very much. I think this is all done as a step-by-step, slowly, catchy monkey way to control our future leadership. And it's exactly why people like Restore or Reform are going to find it incredibly difficult when the blob are still present in the future, when they are running a right-wing, that's populist right-wing government. They are going to be controlled by these people, the type of people that do this training on a regular basis. Should we be worried? Yes. What can we do? I'm entirely unsure. I almost think that you have to scrap the civil service. You have to scrap the blob. Can you imagine what that would mean? That is complete and utter revolution. The type of revolution we have not seen since I don't know when. The uprising, the civil war perhaps, where the king was overturned and Oliver Cromwell came in. Maybe that's what has to happen in future Britain. I support the monarchy. I am a royalist. I am not Oliver Cromwell, by the way. However, this is a worry. It is sinister. They are laced throughout. Their messages are getting through all the time because this has been going on since 1989. So for the last 30 or 40 years, all of our future leaders that are working in these organisations are cloned. And let me tell you, they don't know. I looked around the offices of TfL in my final days and thought, oh my God, look at them all. Drones. It was like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. There were alphas and betas and deltas. There were all sorts of people who had their place in that organisation and that place in our world. And they were all carrying out their tasks in line with common purpose type rules, with the rules that are set by TfL, and in line with unconscious bias training and equity and diversity training. Everything you fear is being carried out in these huge organisations. And it's not just TfL. I focus on TfL because I have experience of that. It gives legitimacy to what I'm saying because I have seen it and heard it. True. Well, I think this is a fascinating insight to something much like the Fabian Society that helps us completely understand how we have arrived to the point we have, where we are all scratching our heads and rubbing our eyes and going, I can't believe I'm seeing this. I can't believe I'm hearing this. How have we possibly got to this point in society, particularly in a first world country like Great Britain? Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's because there are malevolent forces working in the background trying to change the way people think, and they are doing it so slowly that not even those involved recognise it. Wow. Leave in the comments what you think we can do. Perhaps you just think it's all a conspiracy theory and there's nothing to be done. But let me tell you something. Good people of Great Britain, something is happening. It's been happening for a long time. And if we don't do anything, what you see now and think, oh my God, this is terrible, is going to get worse. So what is it we can do? Leave it in the comments. If you like this type of material, if you like the This Is series, please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends about it. Click the bell so you are notified every time I release a new video. The This Is series is going to go and go and go. I have some very exciting subjects to talk about, and the reason they're taking a little bit longer now to release is because I have to do a tremendous amount of research. In between all that will be my usual political and comedic stuff, satire if you will. But until next time, everybody out there, keep it real.